Hey guys, welcome to Storytime Sunday. I'm so excited about this story. I've been thinking about it all night. And yeah, welcome to Storytime Sunday. Well, if you didn't see last week's story, well, watch that first before you watch this. Because this story is part two of that one. Um, this story is called Dance the Tide. If you remember, last week's story was called Chance the Rapids. And Chance the Rapids was about these two couples, these four people. There was Melissa and Jack, and then there was Amy and Brent, and then Amy, like, they were two boyfriends and girlfriends, and one summer when 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 Melissa and Brent were away, Amy and Jack met. They had a young high school affair. Amy got pregnant with Jack's baby, and a whole bunch of other stuff went on. And then when Amy decided to have the baby, she and Jack met at the beach, and they talked, and she showed him pictures of when she was pregnant. They talked about how hard it was for her to give the baby up for adoption, and then on the way back it was raining, and then they got into a car accident, and then unfortunately both of them, both Amy and Jack, didn't make it. So now we're left with Melissa, which was Jack's girlfriend, Brent, which was Melissa, which was Amy's boyfriend, and their baby, Marianne. And that's where we are right now. Um, Amy, Amy and Jack had just died, and Melissa and Brett don't know as yet about the affair, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So, Melissa and Brent, understandably, were both devastated because the love of their lives both died, and they were just devastated, both of them. So Melissa was so depressed. Uh, so she finished out her high school year without her boyfriend, and she was just so lost. She barely passed any of her classes. She managed to squeak by. But what happened was her birthday, all the rest of that summer, all the rest of the year, she just did her homework, came home, didn't want to speak to friends, she refused counseling. It was just awful. She didn't want to do anything. So she finished out that year. She spent the summer just crying and depressed in her room, her parents were so worried, but no matter what they did, she wouldn't do anything. So that same year, she got accepted to a university course. Although she barely passed her first year class, passed her that classes for that year, but her grades for the previous 3 years were so good that her counselor put in a good word for her, and because her counselor knew someone at the school, the guidance counselor said, please, this girl's grades were abysmal this year because she lost her boyfriend in a tragic car accident, and I know she could do better and she would be an ace in your program. And then the person said, okay, we'll give her a year of probation. So she barely got into this university program. What happened was, so she got into this university program. The first week on the campus, she did just like what she did at home, basically stayed in her room, cried, and thought of Jack. And then she met this girl, her roommate was a Christian. I told you before that Melissa didn't grow up in the church at all. She had no um, uh, she had no concept of who God was. But this person was so nice to her and so on fire for the Lord, and just befriended her and just filled her with love, until eventually Melissa told um, uh, this girl Becca what happened with Jack and Amy. But remember, they have no idea that Jack and Amy had an affair. They just know that they were together in a car, and they both died. So Becca, who was an on-fire Christian for the Lord, invited Melissa to a campus service that they were having. And so that night in university, Melissa said, oh, at first she said no, but Becca kept asking and kept asking. And so Melissa finally went. And then when Melissa went, the first night she knew she felt something different. There were these happy people and these smiling faces and these people lifting their hands. And during the worship service, it was just so awesome that that Melissa felt that the Lord was really reaching her heart. And when the pastor of the meeting spoke, he spoke about Job and the trials that Job had to go through. and the fact that God was with Job, although Job had lost everything, lost his children, lost his wife, lost his house, lost everything. And so Melissa could really relate to Job. And when the pastor said, you may have felt like you've lost everything, but you haven't lost your soul. You could gain your soul tonight by getting in relationship with Christ. And he's like, you've given everything else a try. Why not Christ? And there's something about the story of Job that really got to Melissa's heart, and losing everything, losing Jack, losing her hope, losing whatever faith she had in life. So, but there was something about that. She couldn't stop crying. She couldn't stop crying. And Becca put her arm around her. She couldn't stop crying. So she, along with a couple of other students, accepted the Lord in her life that night. And her life was a completely different story. It took some time, but with the Bible study and with good friends and the pastor that was there that night, with all their love and support and her relationship with Jesus, her life totally turned around. Her grades turned around. Her self-esteem turned around. Everything in her life turned around. So she went through university with flying colors. Her grades picked up, and she was even valedictorian. So, and then nearing the end of university, she felt a call to actually go into ministry, not as a pastor, but she was thinking maybe as a lay minister, because she was wanting to tell people what God did for her and what God did in her life. So she signed up for Bible college, and then she would be starting that fall. And then, okay, let me go over to Amy's boyfriend, Brent. Amy's boyfriend, Brent, as I said, he was really on fire for the Lord. And then when Amy died, he was really, really depressed, like Melissa was, but his hope was in the Lord. So although he was depressed, he had lots of faith, and good friends helped him get through. And he was encouraging other people, although he was hurting and full of pain himself. He ended up he realized that a lot of people were going through grief. So he ended up starting a grief group at his high school. And in his last year, his grades were better than they'd ever been. And his love was more better than it's ever been. And his ability to see people and what they were going through was uncanny. He would see a classmate and know immediately by the Holy Spirit that they were depressed, or they were about to commit suicide, or they were gay and not telling their parents, or they were, whatever. It was almost like his grief gave him a window to what other people were feeling, gave him an empathetic spirit to what other people were feeling. So he would just come alongside people and hug them and hold them. It opened up a window to his spirit, for him to see what other people were going through. It's almost like he was locked into what other people were feeling in their grief as well, whether it be somebody on the street whose mother was dying and didn't know what to do, or somebody, somebody who, like people in pain. When Amy died, his grief gave him the Holy Spirit gave him such empathy for people in pain. And he would pray for people, stop and hug people, give people an encouraging word. And the group that he started grew so much that the the high school had to rent him a space, gave him a space for free, because he knew the people knew that whatever he was doing was helping his community. So that's how he spent his last year of high school. And when he entered a Christian university, he just continued with what he was doing. And throughout that time, the Christian university, the group that he had started out of his pain and grief, was growing and growing. And his ability to spiritually sense people's pain, people's hurt, everywhere, was just growing. The Holy Spirit gave him a divine sense of almost a prophetic sense of what people were going through and what they were facing. So his ministry, when he was in that Christian university, was really just growing. And he got a prophetic word from a pastor that was visiting his church, and the pastor said that God has given you a unique and extraordinary ability to see people, and he wants you to minister to those people that you see. So he went he registered for the Bible college that Melissa registered for. So on the first day of that Bible college, they were in biblical history together, and they were partners. And they started talking, and remember, by this point, Melissa was on fire for the Lord, and Brent was totally doing this ministry that was growing by leaps and bounds. And they were like, when they met, they knew that something was going on between them, and he asked her out. She said yes. So they started dating. They dated all through the 4 years of Bible college. And of course, in that time, they talked about their exes and how they both died in a car accident. Keep in mind, they didn't know that it was the same people. Like, that shared grief, but that shared grief and that same experience brought them together and eventually made them fall in love and get married. And years when they fell in love and got married directly after Bible college, they moved in to get together after they were married, and he started a wonderful ministry for people in pain and people in emotional pain. And he had a gift for Brent had a gift for sensing when people were in emotional pain and sensing what they needed, what kind of comfort they needed, or what resources they needed. So he partnered with the community, like with mental health groups, with different groups for not only adults but for teens, and their church's ministry was growing. And in that time too, they had two kids, a boy named Ashton and a little girl named Sarah. So their ministry was growing. They had two kids, and when they'd been married for 15 years, one day, they Brent was at the church, which had several campuses by that time, and Melissa was at home doing laundry, and the kids were at school. The kids were 12 and 12 and 9 at the time. Ashton was 12 and their little girl was 9, and Sarah was 9. So Melissa, there was the doorbell rang, and so Melissa went to get the door, and in front of the door was a girl about 16 about 16 years old, and Melissa said, "Can I help you?" And the girl said, "Yes, my name is Marianne Bartlett. Can I come in?" And then she let the girl in, not knowing what the girl wanted from her. And she wasn't prepared for what the girl was about to say. She's like, "Hello, my name is Marianne Bartlett. She's like, I'm 16 years old. And she said, are you Melissa Hamilton? Is your husband Brent Hamilton?" And she said, "Yeah. Do you need something from the church or whatever?" She's like, "No, but you knew my father. My my biological father, Jack, and she said his last name, uh, Jack Barnes, and he says, and Melissa was like, "Oh my God, Jack Barnes is your father," but Jack Barnes was my boyfriend in high school, and he died, so he couldn't be your father. And I'm sorry, you've got the wrong person. He's like, no. He's like, no, I haven't. He's like, she's like, before he died, my mother, Amy, had me, and then I guess she gave me up, and then the day that she gave me up, they died. Pretty soon after she gave me up, they died. And Melissa said, "I don't know what you're talking about. You're not making any sense." Amy is my husband's friend, girlfriend who also died in an accident. And Marianne said, "Yes, that's my mother, and Jack is my father. I guess they had an affair, so, and I'm a product of the affair, and I just wanted to meet you." And then Marianne handed over her birth certificate and proved that she was who she said she was. And then Melissa just couldn't believe her eyes. She couldn't believe what she was thinking, that Jack and Amy not only knew each other, but they had an affair and created this child who is now 16. And and then Marianne said, "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to surprise you like this, but I've had a really hard time in foster care. I grew up with nobody wanting me, and being moved around from place to place, and I just wanted, but I've been looking for you for a year, and I finally found out that you guys were not only that you guys not only knew each other, but you guys are married with 2 kids. And I just want to know a bit about my mother and father. I'm sorry." And she gets up to leave. And then when she leaves, Melissa calls Brent and says, "Brent, you've got to get home right now. Something is going on." And he says, Are you all right? Are the kids all right? Are Anthony and Sarah all right? She's like, "Oh yeah, the kids are fine, but I don't think I am." So Brent comes home from the church, and then Melissa tells him what they found and what Marianne said, and she shows her the birth certificate, and all the proof that Marianne gave her that Jack and Amy were her parents, and Brent, being as sensitive to the Holy Spirit as she as he is, he says she's he closes his eyes, gets in tune with the Lord, and um, she's like he's like she's telling the truth. Jack and Amy did know each other. Jack and Amy did die together in the car, and they did have a baby. And where Melissa was angry and reticent, Brent was so full of joy that this girl had found them, and that she had um, been through what she had been through, and going from foster home to foster home and not feeling loved or wanted. He wanted right away to adopt her, like to take her into their home, and if it worked out, to adopt her. But Melissa didn't realize that she had anger issues still at Jack for now not only dying, but cheating on her and getting the girl pregnant. So Brent was forgiving of Amy, because his thing was, she's dead now, there's nothing I can do. Let's love her daughter. But Melissa's thing was, I'm still angry. How could that jerk cheat on me and get the girl pregnant? So the next day, um, Brent convinced Melissa to at least, if they couldn't adopt Marianne, but at least take her in so she wouldn't have to go back to that awful foster home that she was living. And so she would have a place to stay. And if it didn't work out, then they could just find another place for her to stay. Melissa wasn't for the idea, but because her husband was so excited about it, and because the kids were so excited about having a big sister, she very reluctantly agreed. And so Marianne moved in with Brent and his family, and you would expect a person that was in foster care, in and out, to be angry, maybe a little resentful or whatever, but not Marianne. Marianne was gentle. Marianne loved the kids, and she loved just life. And pretty soon after she came to live with their family, she became a Christian, and when she became a Christian, she was even more loving and gentle and caring and wonderful. And people at their church loved her, loved her and loved her. And Brent loved her, but Melissa and her had fights, and they just couldn't get along because looking at Mary Ann was a reminder to Melissa of Jack's betrayal. She couldn't get over the fact that Jack betrayed her. And looking at Mary Ann was a reminder that she couldn't see Mary Ann for a person. All she could see was that was Jack's illegitimate daughter that he cheated on me with. And she was just so angry. And every time she would look at Mary Ann, she would want to kill the girl because she was so angry and couldn't see past her own pain. And her husband, being as intuitive as Brent was, tried to be patient with her, but he would constantly see her put down Mary Ann, yell at her, scream at her, and all Mary Ann would do was try to get along with her. And the two of them just would pray for Melissa, but it was just so combative in the household, and it started to infringe on their marriage. It started the conflict between Marianne and Melissa started to infringe on their marriage because like Marianne would get into fights with Melissa, and Brent would try and calm it down, and Melissa would accuse him of being on her side, and it was just so combative that one day Marianne said, you know what, I can't win, I can't do this. And Marianne was 18 at this point. And then she says, you know what, take up your stuff and leave. Melissa says that to Marianne. And he says, fine, I will. I've done everything to try and make you love me. But you can only see me as Jack's daughter. You don't see me as Marianne. You don't see how painful it was for me never being loved. Everyone else at the foster home getting people to adopt them, and nobody wanted me because I was known as the child of an affair, because people at the foster home found out that that not only were my parents not married, but they were together with other people. So I wore that badge every day of my life. So no one wanted me. And I finally find you and Brent, and finally find Sarah and Ashton, and feel a loving family. And the only one who can't get over their pain to see mine is you. She's like, I'm sick of trying to make you love me. I'm sick of trying to be nice to you. She's like, I'm sick of it. I'm leaving. And Melissa says, fine then, leave. And then Marianne leaves. And then after Brent goes home, when Marianne leaves, he's like, what did you do that for? The girl needs our love. She's tried everything to get you to love her. You have to see beyond your pain. And Melissa says, don't tell me what I need to see. And they get into a big fight. And so they're not speaking. And it was a quiet dinner that night. And Melissa, that night says, you know what? I'm going to sleep at a hotel. And Melissa takes her bags, leaves the children with Brent, and goes to sleep at a hotel. And she's like, Lord, and that night she's like alone on the hotel bed. She's like, Lord, I know Marianne and Brent are right, but I don't know how to deal with this anger. I don't know how to deal with the shame, with the shame and with the pain. I need you to help me. Because for all that time, she's been carrying anger that she hasn't let out. She's let it out in spurts, and she spews it. But behind anger, there's pain, and she hasn't really dealt with it. So she really just poured it all out to the Lord, and just says, Lord, show me what to do. Show me where to go wrong. And show me where I went wrong. Show me how I can get over this. And instead of the Lord showing her herself in a dream that night, she saw a little girl just never being loved, and she kind of went outside of her body and her spirit traveled to where Marianne was a little girl, and just she saw clips of Marianne's childhood, like not being able to going over to the other kids, and the other kids saying, we don't want you, you're too skinny, or being a teenager and not being asked out, and having at every foster home people getting adopted and nobody wanting her, and being known as the child of the affair, and just getting into what her life was like. And when God brought her back to her body, she began to cry because she really began to see what her life was like. And she finally began to put down her own pain and understand that she was not the only one hurting, that Brent was hurting too. Because remember, Brent's girlfriend was her mother, not only Jack being her father, but Brent's girlfriend was her mother. But Brent was able to put down his own pain and see Marianne as the girl she was. And that's what happened. So, Melissa decided that although she was still angry and still dealing with all that she was going to go to counseling for her anger. And she got ready to call Marianne, but Marianne didn't answer her phone. And without knowing what to do, Melissa went home. And Marianne was with Brent. And the two women just cried in each other's arms. And Melissa said, I'm so sorry. I I didn't let myself feel what you went through. I put a wall around my heart towards you, and all I could feel was anger. And now all I want to tell you is, I'm sorry, it wasn't your fault. I was blaming you for something Jack and Amy did instead of just seeing you as a person. And she says, I'm sorry. And together, although it wasn't smooth sailing from that day forward, they got family counseling, and they each got individual counseling to work out their individual issues about the affair. And they eventually became a family, a real family that would not just in name, but in emotion and deed and in every way. I hope you enjoyed this story, Dance the Tide. And if you didn't see Chance the Rapids last week, it's still on here. So thank you so much. See you next week. Bye. For a dream is like a river, ever changing as it flows. And a dream is like a vessel, they must follow where it goes, trying to learn from what's behind you. Never knowing what's in store, makes each day a constant battle, just to stay between the shore. I will sail my vessel to the river runs dry, like a bird upon the wind. These waters are my sky, and I won't reach my destination. If I never try, I will sail my vessel to the river runs dry. Too many times we stand aside and let the waters slip away. What we put off till tomorrow has now become today. Don't you sit upon the shoreline and say you're satisfied. Choose to dance, choose to chance the rapids, and dare to dance the tide. I will sail my vessel till the river runs dry, like a bird upon the wind. These waters are my sky, and I won't reach my destination. If I never try, I will sail my vessel till the river runs dry. There's bound to be rough waters, I know I'll take some pulls, but with the good Lord as my captain, I'll make it through them all. I will sail my vessel till the river runs dry, like a bird upon the wind. These waters are my sky, and I won't reach my destination. If I never try, I will sail my vessel to the river runs dry. I will sail my vessel till the river runs dry, like a bird upon the wind. These waters are my sky, and I won't reach my destination. If I never try, I will sail my vessel to the river and dry. I will sail my vessel to the river runs dry. Take care, guys. See you later.